So, I'm thinking that we've all been sitting for a long time. I want to take just 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Please, can you all stand up? Terrific. Just wave your arms, say hello or whatever, and sit down. Thank you. Terrific. So we too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, their elders past, present and emerging. We'd also like to acknowledge the Minister, Stephen, and for all of you wonderful people for coming. Our talk, terrific. So what we particularly want is that we're going to do something just really very basic, I think. And we want you to learn about 4 microbes: bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes. Who's going to remember the bacteria for us? Somebody's going to remember bacteria and something about them. Terrific. Who's going to remember the fungi? Terrific. You love fungi. Who's going to remember the protozoa? People are going to remember protozoa. Protozoa are important, aren't they? Terrific. And nematodes. Who loves nematodes? I love nematodes. Terrific. Somebody loves nematodes. Excellent. So let's get on with things. Our work is predicated on a quote that's attributed to David Attenborough, that no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. Most people have never got to experience their own soil microbes, let alone soil microbes. Who's looked at their own soil microbes? Terrific, terrific, terrific. We've got a few people. So we can't necessarily show you all of your own microbes, but we've got a few in here that we're going to look at today. And we'll do that a little bit later on. We're going to need all of the diversity and all of the goodwill for everything to just work just perfectly. So let's take a closer look at soil first and realise that when we're talking about soil health, we're talking about the physical attributes of soil health, such as the structure. We're talking about the chemical soil attributes, such as the nutrients. We've talked about those. We're talking about the biological aspects of soil health. And it's the biological aspects that we have often ignored. Oops, thank you. And please let us know whether you can't hear. And I know that you may not be able to see, but hopefully we can do some miming or something if necessary. So the soil health, I want to talk about physical, chemical, biological aspects of soil health. We're going to focus on the biological aspect of simply microbiology today, and that to have a good soil health, we need to reach that sweet spot of where those circles overlap. Some people will also add other things such as energetics and so on, but these are the 3 key things that we want to look at. So I'm going to hand over to Bonnie here, and then we'll come back and do a bit more.
Can everyone hear me at the back? Lovely. So in a teaspoon of productive soil, there are going to be more microbes than there are people on Earth. You're going to have billions of bacteria, kilometres of fungi, thousands of protozoa, and hundreds of nematodes. So we've heard a few of these words today, but does that mean anything to any of us, or what do they look like? So let's get into that. So in the same way that in this image up here, you can see that there's a human. There's a microscope in the background. You might be able to see the chair. The way we can tell what we're looking at is by the object size, their shape, and the movement. And the biology is just the same, the microbes that we're looking at. So, bacteria. Bacteria is very small in size, in fact, so small that to see them with our microscopes, we're going to be looking at it at 400 times what the naked eye can see. In this image up here, so you might be able to see some movement there, but basically the movement is, it kind of looks like it's shimmering or jiggling, and they'll tend to move in all the same direction, as opposed to some of the other microbes we're going to look at today. So shape, round, sometimes you get some longer ones, rod-shaped, but generally speaking, they're small, round, and they'll have a shimmering movement. The bacteria, what they do is they exude this sticky slime. So Ken spoke a bit about this. They're exuding this slime. And what this slime does, it acts in gluing together the smallest of the particles, like your sands and silts. If you think about these tiny little aggregates being something like building bricks under the soil, we'll start to get an image of how soil structure is formed. So moving on to fungi. a lot of people have heard of the mycorrhizal fungi, which is the one on the left up here. On the right-hand side, we've got the saprotrophic fungi, which is what we're able to see with our microscopes. In terms of being able to identify it, we're looking for those long strands, the long sticky shapes, and we're also looking for a classic piece of fungi. We're looking for uniform width the whole way through, flat ends, and in terms of movement, fungi doesn't move. In fact, fungi has to grow to its food. So I think if we had to grow to our food, that would get a bit challenging. Not my idea of fun. So this fungi also exudes a bit of a sticky substance. And what that does is if we're thinking about the bacteria building underground bricks, this fungi then acts a bit like a mortar and it starts tying those bricks together. So if you think about bricks and mortar, suddenly you can see or get a picture of buildings, structures. And we heard before about there being like almost like cities underground. So the bacteria and fungi become really key in helping to build that soil structure because we've got these little underground buildings which have spaces where air and water can flow. There's small rooms where the smaller microbes can hide from the larger microbes that might want to predate on them, and also can store nutrients as well. You've got your pantries in there. So, sorry about that. So in this image up here, there's roughly 3 strands of fungi. They can range in colours. You can get clear through to your ambers, dark browns. But you can really see here in these images that fungi looks a lot different from bacteria. Are we all pretty happy we can tell the difference between bacteria and fungi? Fantastic. So this image we have up here, Ellen and I were fortunate enough to be able to do a Kiss the Ground soil advocacy course. And this was a demonstration they did. Normally we would get out our own flour and bread to show you, but logistically it wasn't going to work today. So just got this image up here. But basically down the bottom you can see it's essentially a cup of flour. And the flour is there to represent dirt without microbes. At the top here we've got bread, which is white flour plus microbes, in this case yeast. And we use that to represent soil, which has living organisms in it. So then what we would do is we would take our little container of rain and rain on this dirt. And what we would observe is that the water would hit the dirt and run off. It would often take some of the flour or the dirt with it. And you might see a bit of causing like tunnels or erosion in the dirt. Whereas when we rain up on the bread absorbs it. It becomes like a giant sponge. And that's possible because all of those pockets in there. And so it really highlights the fact that when we have the bacteria and the fungi, it's building that structure, because if you're a plant with roots in, say, the dirt, where the water hasn't penetrated deeply, those roots are going to really struggle to have access to that moisture. Whereas if we've got soil at home that's more like the bread, when we have periods where there's not going to be much rain or less access to water, that soil is holding it and acting as a sponge where the roots can access the water. So it's a really great experiment. If you've got kids at home, give it a go, bit of fun. And just that message about it's not how much water you put on or how much rain you get, it's how much you're able to keep. It's really important. So moving on to protozoa now. I just want to go back briefly to the bacteria and fungi. So the bacteria and fungi take up nutrients and they store them in their body. They kind of act like little bags of fertilizer. But if you think about bags of fertilizer maybe sitting in your shed, not quite so useful if it's not able to get out to the plants. We need a way to spread those nutrients out to the plants. And that's where these protozoa come in. So the role of protozoa is they're going to come along and they are particularly more interested in the bacteria. They're going to consume the bacteria, and just in the same way that when we eat food, we keep the nutrients that we need, we excrete the rest. These guys do the same thing along with hormones and enzymes and other things. And that is able to make those nutrients now available to the plants in a plant available form. So this particular one you can see up on the screen, this one's a testate amoeba, and they essentially pull in a piece of organic matter and they'll consume all the bacteria on it. And in this slide here, you can see some faster moving guys. So we've got flagellates, which are those fast moving ones. And in a moment, do you see the big hairy one? This one's our ciliate. So the cilia are covered in cilia or hair, and they move quite fast. And you can see they're a lot larger than the bacteria, and their movement's different, isn't it? So it's that size, shape, and movement that helps us identify them. You guys tell the difference between a protozoa and a fungi? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? The fungi, long strands, don't move. And then protozoa and bacteria, they're different. The bacteria is a lot smaller. And And last of all, our nematodes. And as Ellen said, we love nematodes. So up in this image here, we've got some different types of nematodes, and we can tell by the shape of their mouth. So in the top left-hand corner there's that's a fungal feeder. It's got a spear in its mouth, and it shoots the spear out into a piece of fungi and sucks out the cytoplasm. Then we've got on the top right is a predatory nematode, and it has a large tooth in its mouth, which allows it to actually eat other nematodes. On the bottom left, we've got a root feeder, and we can tell it's got, looks like some round black circles inside there with a stalk, and they're generally quite obvious to see when you see them. Hopefully, if you've got them, you've got a predatory nematode as well that'll come and eat them for you. And the last one is the bacterial feeder. So it's that mouth shape that helps us identify them. And their shape and size movement, again, much different from the other organisms in terms of movement. If we look here, you can see they have a very snaky or almost like a worm serpentine movement. We've got a fast-moving one in this image and a slower one. And these guys are great because just like the protozoa, they're also consuming a number of different organisms, as we saw. But because of their large size, they're consuming a lot more and therefore helping to cycle those nutrients. So we've heard about nutrient cycling today, and that's, in simple terms, how these microbes are helping to do that. So would anyone like to have a look at some real microbes now? I mean, they're all real, but we've got something here. I'll take that out. Hopefully this works. So where's this sample from, Ellen?
This one's from some compost.
Yep, so for those at the back, some homegrown compost here from Ellen's house, I would imagine. All right, so unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to work, but we are going to set our microscope and laptop up. We've got a little store up there later.
For those of you who've got brilliant eyesight, guess what you can see? What can you see?
Nematode, yeah.
These are real ones. These come out of some fresh sample, and this is what's going to be in your soil.
Oh, no, yes. Unfortunately, we can't get up on the screen. It was working earlier.
It worked earlier, of course, but technology sometimes goes a bit astray. So, but what we're seeing in this bit...
You jump in front of the... Yeah.
I just want to touch on something here that Seb's just brought up about pointing out the microphone, etc. So when we think about microbes, we can actually think of microbes as being a bit like humans. And before I go into an analogy there, I hope that now you have seen bacteria, fungi, protozoa and nematodes. Those photos that we were showing you were ones that we've taken of real things. Oh, look, can you see? We weren't lying after all, were we? So you can see those things. But I want you, I hope now that whenever somebody talks about microbes, that you're going to actually start thinking, what microbes are they talking about? You're buying microbes. What sort of microbes are you buying? Can you see them? Ask to see them, or at least now you know what it is that you're thinking about. What is so important? We keep talking about the importance of biology, but we often don't see it. Now we're getting to see it. So you're getting to see, what are we seeing, Bon? I can't see from the light. So we're seeing a nematode. And there's lots of bacteria. For those of you closer, you'll be able to see the little jiggling movements there. So bacteria, and there was a piece of fungi to about 2 o'clock going up. And testate amoeba, so we've got protozoa, obviously not sprayed with certain herbicides. And fungi. And fungi, terrific. Okay, and we've got fungi. So I want to talk about. So now we've got these pictures in mind that these are real things. This is in the soil that you are walking on, that you're living on, that you're growing things in, and the way that they work means that we have really healthy. When we have healthy soils, we're going to have healthy foods and healthy us, and so that's really important because when you've got healthy us, you've got happy us. The analogy I want to talk about just briefly, like I said, is you can think of microbes as being a bit like people. You take us lot in the room here, and 150 odd people here. Just imagine if we got together, give us any task, I reckon, and we could achieve it because of our diversity of skills. our diversity of connections. You know, they talk about 6 degrees of connection. Never mind about that. I think in Western Australia we've got one. And so we've got all of these connections. We've got resources and equipment and things that we can make things happen. So if I wanted to build a house this weekend by myself, I couldn't do it. But if I had enough carpenters and bricklayers and plumbers and architects and tea makers and urban planners and conflict resolutionists, I reckon we could do it, couldn't we? So if you think about your microbes, some of them are going to be getting that germanium. Some of them are going to be capturing that nitrogen. Some of them are going to be getting a blanket to keep them warm. Some of them are going to be doing the antibiotics. You need this diversity. That's why that Jenner experiment that Ken spoke about was just so important. And so the flies are fine. The flies are all part of this, a part of this. So quickly, the soil. So we have our stomachs in our bodies. Our stomachs digest our food to keep us healthy. And our stomachs use our microbiome. Each person has their own microbiome, even though we've got commonalities. The plant outsources its microbiome, its stomach, to the soil. That's why we have to look after the plant's stomach. That's why we have to look after the soil. The plant health pyramid, which I'm going to show here, is something that if you look on our website, you'll see on our resources page a link to this, but otherwise go to John Kemp's Advancing Eco-Agriculture. This just tells us so much. Those first 2 layers of the bottom 2 layers of the pyramid there, they show that the plant depends on nutrients for its health getting to that stage. And so by the time it's got to that second stage of the pyramid, second level there at the top, you're not going to get your whitefly and your brassicas. In the next layer, though, the top 2 layers, you need diverse, active biology. And it was the cannabis farmers that taught us about this. Oh, don't you see? I think they're saying, oh, gosh, she really smells good. Or So we now have this active, diverse biology, and this active, diverse biology is creating, from the photosynthesis parts, the plants are putting out these exudates, and they're going to be producing proteins and lipids and complex sugars and complex carbohydrates, which if you think about things in your pantry, they might be butters and sugars and eggs and milk and flour, etc. By the time we get up into this bit, that orange layer, it's increased lipid synthesis. This means that the plant is so healthy that it is starting to put on, instead of a little bit of weight, a little bit of wax on the leaves. You're not going to get powdery mildew. By the time you get to the very top, would you believe it, that you're not even supposed to be getting grasshoppers eating your crops, because the plants become inedible. It's like bringing in a bale of hay. We're not going to eat the bale of hay. We're going to probably sit on it. A cow's probably not going to sit on it. It's probably going to eat it. So something along those lines. So why do microbes make soil health better? They build structure. They build that structure so that you've got those little places. So Steve was saying about the oxygen bits. Oh, is that 1 minute? Okay. You can come and see us. You can come and check us out. You can engage us, perhaps to come and talk to your community group, etc. Building structure, holding moisture. 1 gram of carbon holds roughly 8 grams of water. Microbes are predominantly carbon. They cycle nutrients. What are you going to do to look after them? To get them, you're going to provide them with the same things that you might provide your kids with. Food, air, water, protection from sunlight, too much sunlight, from other humans, from insecticides, pesticides, etc. And we'd like to add to that, please give them some friends. Make sure that they've got a good diversity of people around them so they can say hello. Where are you going to get them from? Check out the Jenner experiment, Jena. The diversity of green plants is important because each plant has its own microbiome, which means extra different microbes, composts and worm castings, commercial products, all of these things. Take-home messages. The soil is the plant's stomach, and that, like our stomach, it has a microbiome. You need lots of healthy microbes because they're essential to our healthy soils and our healthy plants. Care for and protect your microbes, get to know them, come and find them, make ways that you can actually see your own so you'll really want to protect them, and treat them as if they were your kids. On behalf of us, thank you.